I mean, hey, what do I know, right? I'm not famous, right? I'm not famous enough to be taken seriously, and that's what matters. That's what matters. It doesn't matter whether or not what you're saying is credible or it makes sense or there's a continuum of inescapable logic. It doesn't matter that your treatment of a given subject or subject matter is like a steel trap from which no one can, it's a black hole, a singularity from which not even light itself can escape? No, that's not important. What's important is how many followers you have on Twitter. What's important is how big your audience is, right? And whether it's social media or even the mainstream media. I mean, look at Sean Hannity. He's a giant fucking moron, but even the President of the United States seems to love him. I don't know. That reminds me of the Cicero quote about the traitor is the plague, because his whispers are... His deceptive whispers are heard even in the halls of government. I don't know. I think Sean Hannity's just a useful idiot. I don't think he's an enemy operative. Then again, I mean, look at Hannity and Colmes. He is the poster boy for fake rightism. He was literally manufactured as an avatar of this is what a conservative is. This bumbling idiot is what a conservative is. I digress. When I think about how what matters is the size of your audience. Far more than anything you might actually say, what matters is the size of your audience or your ability to get one. Nothing popular is ever good. Let me give you an example. When I see people rush in, Bitcoin would be a perfect example. When you see people mortgaging their house, when you see TV head, schlubs mortgaging their house to buy Bitcoin, that's how you know the top is in. You know what I mean? It's when all the fools are rushing in, that's when you know we're at the top and it's time to get the fuck out, right? So anything that becomes too popular, you get the hell away from it as soon as possible. And it's just instinctive for me. I don't mean to seem like a total, contrarian beyond reason. I mean, I'm a contrarian, but within reason. You know what I mean? So whenever I see the herd flocking towards something, I start running away from it. That's almost always true in the market. You're always finding tops around that phenomenology. And whenever I think of this, whenever I think of how what matters today is the size of your audience and not the integrity of your words or your treatment or your analysis, and that you're constantly going to be refuted by people with copy pasta and appeal to authority fallacies who are just referencing whatever is the popular understanding or the accepted wisdom, I always think of that Nietzsche quote about if you would seek followers, seek knots. What he's suggesting there, and it's sort of a reference to Wagner, who was very popular and a giant boob, is, if you would seek followers, seek knots. In other words, anyone who's got 1 million followers basically has a whole bunch of zeros behind them, following them around. It's a great little quote. It's a great little joke by Nietzsche, who's just constantly making little puns, and even if you don't agree with everything Nietzsche has to say, you have to love his writing style. He's a fucking badass, and it's even better in like the German. Like if you actually, Kaufman's probably the only one who does a real service through his translation. But I digress. Just want to get that down. I was sitting here commenting on Cerno Bitch. Actually, you know what? Let me just read my frickin' tweets. Let's do a little experiment here. Never done this before. Let's just read the tweets of Joshua Roberts, right? What is the kind of crap that I have to say? I like to think that I had a hand in helping Kurt Nimmo move away from InfoWars and join Newsbud. And now we can argue that Newsbud subsequently has tacked on a lot of dead weight and is not quite what I wanted it to become. Sure, But nevertheless, InfoWars has gone completely off this crap. It's garbage now. It's literally like the Roger Stone is an enemy asset disguised as but then so is Cernovich and a lot of these other morons. Posobiec is another. I don't think he's an enemy asset. I think he's just a useful idiot. Roger Stone is probably just he's a useful idiot. I don't think he's an enemy asset. Maybe. He just seems like a monumental useful idiot who is so much a useful idiot because he's got a giant ego. He's so far up his own ass that he achieves the effect of being just this massive useful idiot. Okay, so anyway, Kurt Nimmo made a little quote here. Let's go to the actual post by Kurt Nimmo. Retweeting this again so we can understand where Cernovich and the new right, alt-right stand on the First Amendment. By the way, I consider myself to be, new right, alt-right, and I don't think Cernovich belongs there. I don't think the Never-Trumper Ben Shapiro belongs there either. I'd like to take them both out and put a bullet in their fucking heads. I'm not threatening anybody with violence, mind you, but I think we'd all be better off if they disappeared. CIA, if you're listening. These folks are authoritarians, and if they manage Mike Pompeo... If I could get on that platter next to Julian Assange's head. A lot of people on the right, just digressing from the Nimmo post here, a lot of people on the right think Julian Assange is a good guy. He's not. He's not a good guy. He's an arch leftist who's trying to kiss ass because he knows he's going to be fucking either in prison or executed, basically, because Pompeo wants his head. I mean, so he's been kissing ass since 2016. Prior to that, arch leftist, pumping anthropogenic global warming, pumping open borders, you name it. Pumping, and basically, how did WikiLeaks become famous? WikiLeaks became famous by violating national security and playing into the down with Western civilization meme, one of the champions of which is Noam Chomsky. Oh, by the way, here's a picture of him palling around with Noam Chomsky. Oh, and who else is he palling around with? Michael Moore and, a lot of other never-Trumpers. So, I don't know. You people who are in the Trump camp who think Julian Assange is a good guy, A, you don't understand national security, B, you don't understand the existence of the globalized intelligence community and how Assange is a puppet of that community. I think the sheep dipped him back in the 90s. I used to think Assange was a useful idiot, but now it's very clear to me he's like Snowden. He's a manufactured avatar. He's a captured and manufactured avatar of the globalized intelligence, the New World Order intelligence community. Why am I saying globalized? This is my podcast. You people will know what I'm talking about. I don't need to cloud what I'm saying. I don't need to say something like deep state. I can come right out and explain what the deep state is, because you all know. It's the apparatus of the New World Order installed within our federal government by the globalists that they use to manipulate our civilization. These other idiots who are constantly going derp state this and derp state that and drain the swamp. They don't even understand what the hell the swamp is. They don't understand what the deep state is. They want to go after Hillary Clinton for some emails and Benghazi. You and I both know that the Clintons were nobodies. They were handpicked. Bill Clinton went up in the tree and they were like, we can use this guy. Here's a neckbeard leftist we can use to push our globalist agenda. And, they were helping to smuggle drugs out of Mena, Arkansas in order to fund, you look at Iran-Contra. What is it? It exposed the deep state, the existence of a shadow government, a parallel government, right? A continuity of government architecture right here within the United States, operating in parallel to the actual government with its own funding mechanisms, its own funding mechanisms based on drug and human trafficking. And the Clintons were right there, and they were right there at the heart of it, helping to run the drugs out of Mena, Arkansas. All right? Let's ask Barry Seal whether or not they're involved. Oh, wait. Let's ask Vince Foster what he knows. Oh, wait. You notice how the argument becomes about a bunch of frickin' emails and nothing burger memos, but we won't have the conversation about Iran-Contra. And part of the reason is, oh God, what's his name? He got Oliver North gets a show on Fox News. I mean, Fox News is an enemy operation. And that's the sad part, is it's the only game in town. We all have to go and, hat in hand, we have to go over to Fox News and go, hey, will you talk about conservative issues? I digress. Back to the Kurt Nimmo post, retweeting this again so we can understand where Cernovich and the new alt-right, new right stand on the First Amendment. These folks are authoritarians, and if they manage to get into power, they will do the same to your natural rights as the SJW crowd. And I echo this. I'm not talking down to him when I say, when I reference the WWF. I'm saying, Kurt Nimmo understands what's going on here. This is a false left-right paradigm. Much like Sean Hannity and whatever the fuck his name is, Combs, is a manufactured WWF, fake false paradigm architecture. Here's the person who represents the right, and here's the person who represents the left. Now let's watch them fight. Meanwhile, the reality is their fight is just a bunch of foreground minutia, right? In order to create a false paradigm and a limited hangout operation, basically. I'm not even going to go to the Cernovich shit. He's right. He's right about Cernovich with his tweet. But let's look at my responses. What are my responses? Cernovich is a globalist puppet. Cernovich is his new name, by the way. I just thought of that today. I don't know why, because I don't really care about him, so. But I hate him, and, I finally take some time to really comment here. So, Cernovich is a globalist puppet, manufactured into a mini-celebrity and injected into our movement to make us all look like racist assholes. So the mainstream media can point at us and say, all Trump supporters are money-grubbing, coattail-riding racists. Cernovich, see, here's the thing. He's not even smart. Let's say he was a sort of fasci type guy. He's not even smart enough to be all mums the word about it. You know what I mean? He's not even smart enough to talk about it in a sort of coded way to where the enemy can't point at him and go, look. You know what I mean? Like, he's a bad operative. If he were actually on our side, he's a moron and a nub who should never be made famous. Anyway, Cernovich et al., Ben Shapiro, other people like him, are the other side of the manufactured perceptual paradigm. And I link the image of Hulk Hogan and Macho Man Randy Savage. Right? It's WWF wrestling, basically. It's a fake fight. It's hard to get the Soros et al. Rentamobs, the Rentamob Muppets, to do street actions without the Ben Shapiro and Cernovich types to show up and have a little speech for them to protest against, right? You have to have the racist assholes, right, who pretend to be in our camp in order for there to be this pushback by manufactured Rentamobs, you know, on the quote-unquote left. They don't represent the left. Cernovich doesn't represent the right. You know, I love plenty of people who are on the left. You know what I mean? A lot of them are just brainwashed from birth. They don't know any better. But I don't have hate in my heart. I'm a Christian. I want to reach out, and I want to deprogram, and I want to educate, and I want us to move forward together. I want to disabuse them of the brainwashing and mind control that they've been a victim of, and bring them into the fold. I want to have a big tent. I'm not like these assholes, and honestly, fundamentally, I'm not racist. I am for, you know, race, though. I think black people should be proud of being black, and they should marry other black people and have black children. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think the same for white people or Asian people, whatever it is. You should be proud of your race. I don't think multiculturalism is the answer. I think there's something to be said as we go into and colonize space to preserving this biological regionalized diversity. That is our heritage as an organic species. We should be proud of it and celebrate it and maintain those bloodlines rather than just polluting them. And I don't mean that just for white people. I mean that for everybody. I mean that for blacks and Asians, and you know what I mean? And there's whole subgroups of Asians and white people and black people. So you know what I mean? Like, I think we should preserve those cultures. I think we're going to need them. We don't even know how it's like we got rid of all the various forms of corn, and now we just have GMO, 2 or 3 strains of GMO corn. This limiting of genetic diversity is a profound weakness that doesn't become understood until later on when bad things start to happen because that diversity has been lost. I digress. True diversity is to have multiple races that have sort of pure bloodlines. And I don't mean that. So that's the thing. They taint everything. If you talk about something like that, if you talk about maintaining pure bloodlines, they're like, oh, you're a Nazi. You see how they manipulate? It's all guilt by association. You can't even talk about it as a biologist and an anthropologist.
I see the police have made another lightning raid. Paddington drug orgy.
I suppose young girls was involved.
One discovered naked in the kitchen. Breasts smeared with peanut butter. The police took away a bag containing 15 grams of cannabis resin. It may also contain a quantity of heroin.
Or a pork pie.
I beg your pardon?
I said the bag may also have contained a pork pie.
I hardly see a pork pie's got anything to do with it.
All right, then. What about a large turnip? It may also have contained a big turnip.
The bag was full of drugs.
Nonsense.
The bag was full of drugs. It says so.
The bag could have been full of anything. Pork pies, turnips, oven parts. It's the oldest trick in the book.
What book?
The Distortion of Truth by Association book. The word is may. You all believe heroin was in the bag because cannabis resin was in the bag. The bag may have contained heroin, but the chances are 100 to 1 certain that it didn't.
Not more likely than what you say.
About as likely as the tits spread with peanut butter.
Mind.
The tits were spread with peanut butter.
Nonsense.
It says so. Who's the man you are to think you know more about it than the press?
I'm an expert on tits. Tits and peanut butter. I'm also an expert drug pusher. I've been pushing drugs for 20 years.
Look here, I've had enough of this.
And I can tell you, a pusher protects his pitch. We want to sell him cigarettes and don't like competition, see? So we associate a relatively innocuous drug with one that is extremely dangerous. And the rags go along with it because they adore the dough from the ads.
I've had enough of this. I'm getting off at Datchet.
Getting off at Datchet won't help you. Getting off anywhere won't help you. I've had an octopus squatting on my brain for a fortnight, and I suddenly see that I am the only one that can help you. It would be pointless to go into the reasons why, but I've been worried sick about boils for a fortnight. Large boils, small boils, fast eruptors. They're incurable, all of them. I know that, and so does everybody else, until they get one. Then the rules suddenly change. With a boil on the nose, there's a sudden overnight surge in faith. They want to believe something will work. He knows that, which is why he gets a good look in with a dying. Sells him hope, you see. But these boys would be full-time into real estate if anyone came up with a genuine cure for death.
Good God, this is a madman!
What do you know about God, you wire-haired Mick? Here, have him!
I digress. Cernovich et al. Are the other side of the manufactured perceptual paradigm. It's hard to get the Soros et al. Rent-a-mob types, right, to do street actions without the Ben Shapiros and the Cernoviches. The TV heads eat it up, and they ask for seconds, because it's the WWF. My concluding unscientific postscript here, and that's a reference to Kierkegaard, who is an anti-Hegelian, because the other day I was trying to explain how McMasters is how we co-opted McMasters, and I'm being told by my friend TJ, Thomas Jefferson, on Twitter that I don't understand the Hegelian dialectic, and I don't understand the CFR. I mean, I write poems about Zbigniew Brzezinski, for Christ's sake, but I don't understand the CFR. I wish I could go into a whole thing explaining McMasters and Tillerson, and it would take 2 hours to even get a handle on a lot of this stuff, so I'm not going to go into it here. But anyway, I was referencing Kierkegaard because I consider myself to be a fucking massive... I'm like Kierkegaard with a flamethrower. I'm an anti-Hegelian par excellence, so it's very insulting to me. Anyway, my, quote, concluding unscientific postscript, end quote, here is to say that Cerno bitch is a large turnip. I'm referencing the Distortion of Truth by Association clip, which is a clip from the film How to Get Ahead in Advertising. The Distortion of Truth by Association. What is that? It's kind of like what they did by funding the National Socialists. You know? Kind of the way the cartel financed the National Socialists. Now, the Bush family was bunch of nobodies. Bunch of East Coast wannabe Thurston Howell nobodies, right? Wannabe Brits. And they were nobodies until Prescott helped the Harrimans finance Hitler into power. Okay? Now, obviously, they imploded Europe. Germany has lost its heritage. It's now the corpse prince of Europe, and it's used to sort of be the managing control node via the Bundesbank. The managing control node of Empire Europe. The European Union is a New World Order block structure IPO, initial public offering. And this was engineered, completely engineered. World War I, World War II, what kings and monarchs failed to do for thousands of years through internecine conflict was achieved in a handful of decades by merchants and Rothschild, Rockefeller types and globalists and elites, right? Through deception and, trickery. But they engineered 2 world wars to bring about the necessary preconditions for the European Union, a block structure IPO. So this is the manufacturing of the Cernovich types. It's kind of the way they financed the National Socialists into power with Hitler, so that they could implode Europe and bring in the European Union and reduce the nation states to petty fiefdoms, But what do I know? I mean, I'm not famous, so nothing I say gets taken seriously. I'll maybe get if I upload this to YouTube, I'll get maybe 200 views. And no one will share it, and nobody thinks I know what I'm talking about because maybe I ramble and I don't know. Who knows why? But Cernovich will get will fart on a snare drum and get 1 million retweets, guaranteed. You see, the plan here is quite simple. It's guilt by association. It's the distortion of truth by association. The objective is to ensure that captured slaves with Cernovich, the objective is to ensure that captured slaves on the DNC plantation always come away with the notion that nationalism equals ultranationalism. Any form of I want to have actual borders and I have a nation state equals Hitler. That is the idea that they want to put into people's heads. anyone who wants to, and they've done this, if you want to understand how they did this and how this works, just look at the United Kingdom. It's exactly what they did. That's the meme. That's the overarching meme. The corollary is how the EU actually engineered the BNP, the British Nationalist Party, into existence. Or the way, the KKK, which is the foundation, basically, of the Democratic Party, is started by, basically Albert Pike. It's an occultization of Christian mythos. I mean, in other words, they manufacture ultra-nationalistic, racist people and parties and groups so that the media, the hijacked media, can point at those manufactured mini-celebrities and go, look, anybody who's for nationalism is a KKK member. Very simple, really. And in the UK, the way that worked is with the manufacturing of the BNP, or we could go into Robinson or any of these other useful idiots / enemy operatives. The manufacturing of them is extremely important because that way there are a number of high-profile, public-facing mini-celebrities that the BBC, Channel 4, Sky News can point to and say, if you want control over your borders and anything other than being a petty fiefdom in Empire Europe, you're a racist and a xenophobe. Meanwhile, the EU's founding fathers, Globka, Spock, Hallstein, Funk, these are all frickin', Nazis. Card-carrying Nazis. So... but it doesn't matter, because the public is demoralized. Insert the Bezmenov-Griffin interview here. Just look up Bezmenov on demoralization. The two attendant clips here are Bezmenov on demoralization and the distortion of truth by association. Maybe I'll just edit them in. Anyway.
But in reality, the main emphasis of the KGB is not in the area of intelligence at all. According to my opinion and opinion of many defectors of my caliber, only about 15% of time, money, and manpower is spent on espionage as such. The other 85% is a slow process which we call either ideological subversion or active measures, активные мероприятия in the language of the KGB, or psychological warfare. What it basically means is to change the perception of reality of every American to such an extent that despite of the abundance of information, no one is able to come to sensible conclusions in the interests of defending themselves, their families, their community, and their country. It's a great brainwashing process which goes very slow, and it's divided in 4 basic stages. The first one being demoralization. It takes from 15 to 20 years to demoralize a nation. Why that many years? Because this is the minimum number of years which requires to educate one generation of students in the country of your enemy, exposed to the ideology of the enemy. In other words, Marxism-Leninism ideology is being pumped into the soft heads of at least 3 generations of American students without being challenged or counterbalanced by the basic values of Americanism, American patriotism. The result you can see. Most of the people who graduated in the 60s, dropouts or half-baked intellectuals, are now occupying the positions of power in the government, civil service, business, mass media, educational system. You are stuck with them. You cannot get rid of them. They are contaminated. They are programmed to think and react to certain stimuli in a certain pattern. You cannot change their mind, even if you expose them to authentic information, even if you prove that white is white and black is black, you still cannot change the basic perception and the logic of behavior. In other words, these people, the process of demoralization is complete and irreversible. To get rid society of these people, you need another 20 or 15 years to educate a new generation of patriotically minded and common sense people who would be acting in favor and in the interests of the United States society.
And yet these people who've been programmed and, as you say, in place and
Yes.
who are favorable to an opening with the Soviet concept, these are the very people who would be marked for extermination in this country?
Most of them, yes. Simply because the psychological shock when they will see in future what the beautiful society of equality and social justice means in practice, obviously they will revolt. They will be very unhappy, frustrated people. And the Marxist-Leninist regime does not tolerate these people. Obviously they will join the links of dissenters, dissidents.
Yes.
Unlike in present United States, there will be no place for dissent in future Marxist-Leninist America. Here you can get popular like Daniel Ellsberg and filthy rich like Jane Fonda for being dissident, for criticizing your Pentagon. In future, these people will be simply squashed like cockroaches. Nobody is going to pay them nothing for their beautiful, noble ideas of equality. This they don't understand, and it will be greatest shock for them, of course. The demoralization process in the United States is basically completed already. For the last 25 years. Actually, it's overfulfilled because demoralization now reaches such areas where previously not even Comrade Andropov and all his experts would even dream of such a tremendous success. Most of it is done by Americans to Americans, thanks to lack of moral standards. As I mentioned before, exposure to true information does not matter anymore. A person who was demoralized is unable to assess true information. The facts tell nothing to him. Even if I shower him with information, with authentic proof, with documents, with pictures, even if I take him by force to the Soviet Union and show him concentration camp, he will refuse to believe it until he is going to receive a kick in his fat bottom. When a military boot crashes his, then he will understand, but not before that. That's the tragic of the situation of demoralization.